Okay, that will finish our appointments for the year of 2018. We welcome to consult with all of the aforementioned professionals, as well as, obviously, Mr. Sachs. We move to our regular meeting. I will make one quick announcement, something we forgot at the end of, it was an oversight at our last meeting in 2017. And there's 2 awards as certificate of appreciation. I will read it once and say the 2 names. The Old Bridge Zoning Board of Adjustment hereby grants this certificate in recognition of your commitment and dedication for 100% attendance for the year of 2017, signed by the mayor, dated January 11th, 2018. Those awards go to Mr. Connor. Congratulations. And as well, Ms. Kilduff. Thank you for your perfect attendance. As a matter of housekeeping, I'd ask everyone in the courtroom this evening to please silence their phones in deference to those who are going to testify before the board. Additionally, we are being televised this evening on OBTV. As such, the rules are regulated that they must go off the air at 10 p.m. If you're watching at home, you're going to lose the feed after 10 p.m. Those in the courtroom, obviously, you'll still be able to hear us. Item 6 is minutes. We have 2. Let's do one at a time. October 5th, 2017. Having read same, does anyone have any additions, deletions, or comments? If not, I'd ask someone to move them for resolution, for memorialization.
Motion.
As to October 5th, correct? Is there a second?
Second.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Connor?
Yes.
Mr. Dewhurst?
Yes.
Ms. Kilduff?
yes,
Mr. Walker?
Yes.
Chairman Cole?
Yes. As to December 21, same applies, absent any additions, deletions, or commentary. Someone moving for memorialization.
I'll move them.
Is there a second?
a second,
Roll call, please.
Mr. Connor?
Yes.
Mr. Dewhurst?
Yes.
Ms. Kilduff?
yes,
Mr. Walker?
Yes.
Chairman Cole?
Yes. Item number 8 on the agenda is resolutions. We're going to take them as a block, and I'd like to announce them all. Do you have them written down, Kim? Yeah. I'm going to go do this, and then we'll go back.
Okay, yeah, no problem. Yeah, we can
I
actually,
don't want to miss any, but,
Do you want me to say them all?
well, no, yeah, I'm going to announce consulting engineers. Tell me who they are, and the audience.
CME, Environmental Resolutions, and Delaware American.
Consultant planners,
Mark Remsa, CME, Environmental Resolutions.
consultant traffic,
CME, Environmental Resolutions.
forestry services, CAFS.
Yes.
Okay. Zoning board attorney?
Larry Sachs.
Larry Sachs. Board, you've heard all of the above. Someone want to move them for memorialization?
Motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Connor?
yes.
Yes.
Ms. Kilduff?
yes,
Mr. Walker?
Yes.
Ms. Chevalier?
yes,
Mr. Stoner?
yes,
Chairman Cole?
Yes. We'll back up to number, item 7 is completeness waivers. We have 2. 4817Z, Bury the Hatchet, LLC. As soon as I find it. Good evening, sir.
So this is a completeness waiver on a use variance. The proposed use is a recreational use in the EO1.
I'm just looking to see what the use is here. It's interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's what you would think, bury the
Yeah, I
hatchet.
The
guess.
use is, I think it's very popular. You actually go there and you throw hatchets at targets. I think you're gonna have a lot of women's nights out and guys' nights out, and I think it'll be a lot of fun.
Hope not at the same time.
Yeah. They're not allowed to put faces on the targets, right, of their husbands? No? Just a thought.
So I went through with Catherine, she actually did a markup for January 8th, hopefully the board received that. That's completely accurate, and I really have no other comments beyond that, that we are going to comply with the things that we agreed to comply with on that January 8th memo.
Okay, for those watching on TV and those at home, Bury the Hatchet LLC is making an application for a D variance to the board, and prior to doing so, they're asking for a waiver request for certain items. Our planner, Ms. O'Kane, has opined the following, that some of the, how many are there, Counselor? Do you remember her exactly?
Oh, which ones were you?
Well, no, the total number, there looks like there's about.
16.
All right, there's 16, and it looks like 3 that our planner does not agree to waiver, and I think you put on the record just now that you agree and that you would supply them.
Correct.
I don't really want to read each and every one, but for those watching, some of the important ones would be key map, a location and disposition of existing structures, correct? And a list of restrictions on property. Others granted would be, if the board is so inclined, environmental impact statement, community impact, traffic impact, aquifer recharge, storm water, track data, existing buildings, water courses, bridges, wooden lines, location and widths of streets. I'll ask Ms. O'Kane just to make a comment on this.
Thank you. Initially, there were 18 waivers requested, of which there are 16 remaining. 3 were taken care of. The applicant agreed to comply with them, and then 1 was added for the scale. So because I noted it, he asked for it to be waived as well, so it took it up to a total of 16. The use is going in an existing building on Route 34. They're not changing anything about that, so a lot of the waivers are requested for things that would be for new development, and therefore I didn't think that there would be a problem waiving them, with the exception of a few that we, as a township, generally require and are helpful in our reviews. And the applicant has been wonderful and agreed to comply with most of them, so we look forward to this application before the board.
Thank you, Ms. O'Kane. Board members, any questions on my left? Any on my right? Mr. Berger, any comment?
No.
Okay. Having heard what I've said, what Mr. Berger said, and what the planner has told us, does anyone want to move this for an approval?
Motion to approve.
Waivers except for the 3 noted, correct?
Yes.
Is there a second?
Second.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Connor?
Yes.
Mr. Dewar?
Yes.
Ms. Phillips?
Yes.
Mr. Walker?
Yes.
Ms. Chevrolet?
Yes.
Mrs. Gunn?
Yes.
Jim Clark?
Thank you, Mr. Berger. Happy New Year. We have a second one. That's 42-17Z. It's DSZ LLC. Is anyone here representing them?
Mr. Sullivan, I'm going to handle this one.
Okay, go right ahead.
The applicant, DSC LLC, their property is located at the corner of Englishtown Road and John Wall Road. They've submitted a use variance application that would be bifurcated, so they're only seeking the use point at this point. The waivers that they requested 6 in total. Of those 6, 4 of them, in discussions with Nicole, we felt that they were necessary for the property. There are some environmental constraints on the property, wetlands, there's a tree line, so we thought that they would be very beneficial in the review, and they are tied inherently just to the use itself, not just the site plan. I only released that letter to them today, and so that's why they're not here tonight, because they're still kind of processing my review letter saying that we request those items. However, they are still seeking the 2 waivers that I did not have an issue with, which are the community impact statement, 3B, and number 14, number of existing proposed lots, residential density, and % of open space, because it's not really a residential property. The main use on the property is going to be between like an office, industrial, manufacturing, light manufacturing. And so on behalf of the applicant, or because they did submit the waiver request, 3B and 14 are before the board tonight for waiver requests. The other ones we have requested as to be supplied to the township for completeness. And so I recommend that these 2 waivers be granted.
Okay, thank you. Board members, you've heard the planner's statement. Any questions on my left or on my right? Having heard none, would someone like to move all except 3B and 14?
Motion.
As stated. Is there a second?
No, it's the other way around.
We're keeping 3B and 14.
14, yeah.
Right. We're going to waive 3A, 3D, 3E.
No.
No.
Did I say that the first time?
3B and 4.
3B and 14 we're keeping,
We're gonna waive them
and keep the others.
and keep the others
All
as
right.
requirements.
My mistake. Everybody understand that now? Now does someone want to move it?
Motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Roll call.
Mr. Conner?
Yes.
Mr. Duper?
Yes.
Ms. Phillips?
Yes.
Mr. Walker?
Yes.
Ms. Chevalier?
Yes.
Mr. Turner?
yes,
Chairman Cohen?
Yes. Escrow deficiency, 27-16Z HHFT Kennedy Arco Design in the amount of $500. Someone want to move it? I'll take them separate. Mhm. Anybody want to move that? I will. Is there a second?
Second.
Roll call.
Mr. Conner?
Yes.
Mr. Duper?
Yes.
Ms. Phillips?
Yes.
Mr. Walker?
Yes.
Ms. Chevalier?
Yes.
Mr. Turner?
yes,
Chairman Cohen?
Yes. 3417Z BJ's Wholesale Club, 500, paid. Someone want to move it?
Motion.
Second.
Go ahead. Roll call, please.
Mr. Conner?
Yes.
Yes.
Ms. Phillips?
Yes.
Yes.
Ms. Chevalier?
Yes.
Mr. Turner?
yes,
Chairman Cohen?
Yes. Under Resolutions 4317Z, Manish and Alpana Gupta.
Yes.
Mr. Sacks.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Application 43-17Z, Manish Gupta. This was an application that was heard on December 7th, property located Block 24100, Lot 22, 38 Aberdeen Drive, located in the R5 zone. The applicant was seeking to add an additional 65 square feet to the basement as a powder room and 389 square feet to the first floor as an addition to the house with an associated outdoor patio area of 475 square feet. It exceeds the floor area ratio in the zone. The permitted FAR in that zone is .40. The existing is .498. The proposed is .56. There was also one bulk variance for maximum lot coverage. 30% maximum is required and is permissible in the zone. 33% existing, 44.3% proposed. There was testimony from Mr. Gupta, from Mr. Higgins, who offered professional planning testimony. The application was approved on that date, and there was one condition of approval that the proposed residential addition will not be utilized for any commercial purposes as transient housing or as an Airbnb.
Board members, you heard the resolution. Someone want to move it?
Motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Conner?
Yes.
Mr. Duper?
Yes.
Ms. Phillips?
Yes.
Mr. Walker?
Yes.
Chairman Cohen?
Yes. 3417Z, BJ's Wholesale Club, amended major site plan preliminary to final with D1 and a C variance. Mr. Sacks.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Application 34-17Z, BJ's Wholesale Club. It was an application for an amended site plan preliminary and final with D1 use variance and C variance approval. The application was heard on November 2, 2017. Property located Block 4185, Lot 2.11 at 1007 Highway 9. The applicant was seeking, and by the way, the property is located in the CR Regional Commercial Zone. The applicant was seeking to construct a 528 square foot fenced-in area with a 1,000-gallon propane dispenser. The facility is proposed to be constructed on a concrete slab located at the front portion of one of the parking aisles located in the center of the site. The proposed location of the propane tank requires the removal of parking spaces. The applicant seeks bulk variance relief for parking. The dispenser area will include a 6-foot fence, protective bollard, signage, propane cylinder cage, and associated improvements. Retail sale of propane is not permitted in this zone. That's why a D1 use variance is required. And in terms of the bulk variance, as I said, it was for parking spaces, 667 required, 437 existing, and 427 proposed. There was testimony from several witnesses, Mr. Stephen Powers, a professional engineer, Mr. Justin Auciello, a professional planner. There were several conditions of approval that were incorporated into this application and this approval. They were that the applicant will only refill the 1,000-gallon tank before 10 a.m. and after store closing hours. Signage will be posted restricting filled tanks from entering the store. A written fire plan will be provided for the review of the professional staff and fire marshal, and certified employees will wear badges indicating their certification. So that is the resolution before you this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Sachs. Board members, anyone want to move it?
I'll move it.
Is there a second?
Second.
Roll call, please.
Ms. Connor?
Yes.
Mr. Buhey?
Yes.
Yes.
Mr. Wolf?
Yes.
Chairman Sullivan?
Yes. Brings us to item 9, and that's applications. Will be the first one of the evening. It's 4417Z, John Chu and Wei Chu Yang Chu, 2 Cobblestone Court for finished basement. This is in the R5 zone requiring a D variance. Is the applicant here? Come forward, sir. And ma'am? Will you both be testifying? Yes. Board
Okay.
attorney's going to swear you in.
All right, please, both of you, please raise your right hands. I'll swear you in. Swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God? All right, please state your name, spelling your last name and address for the record.
John Chu, Jacob Chen, CHU. I live in 2 Cobblestone Court, Oakland, New Jersey, 480,000.
Please have a seat. The board attorney is going to advise you of one of the rules of the board. Okay, have a seat.
Mr. and Mrs. Chu, because this is a use variance application, it's what we call a floor area ratio application under the municipal land use law. It obviously requires a 5-person vote, but more importantly, the rules and regulations of this board are that when you appear for a use variance, that you have a court reporter present. Now, you can waive the requirement of having a court reporter, and most applicants who have this type of application do so. Are you willing to do so?
Sure.
Yes? Okay, all right.
Okay. We understand what you're doing. You want to improve the basement that you already have in your home, so you're staying within inside of the footprint of your home.
Yes.
So what we'd like you to do is explain to the board in your own words. I want you to feel comfortable. You're a resident here in town. I want you to tell us what you're going to do, how you're going to do it. If you have any exhibits, I'd ask you to give them to Ms. Silverman. She'll pass them around to the board. Both of you have been sworn, so both of you can testify. If you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer them for you. I'm then going to ask our professionals why you need this variance and how you're going to work this variance. Then I'll ask the board members if they have any questions. Finally, I'm going to ask the public if they have any commentary. And then if you want, the board will take a vote on your application, okay? So in your own words, just begin.
Okay, currently, we don't have any recreation area. So, like this, our first floor is the kitchen and living room. Second floor is the bedroom and bathroom. So there's no much of a recreation area. So my proposal is to finish the basement so that we can have a pool table, a ping pong table, something like that. All we need to do is just to put sheetrock wall, okay, and then some light fixtures, maybe drop ceiling, and then we're not going to expand it. We're not going to have any bathroom at all. Nobody will live downstairs. We just use it for recreation, and put some maybe 2 or 3 closets, and that's it.
Is this a depiction of your basement, sir?
Yes, correct.
Okay. Do you have any other exhibits that you want to show us? That's all you're presenting, right?
Not that they're necessary.
I just wanted to make sure you didn't have any pictures you wanted to show.
No, that's it.
Anything else you want to say right now?
No.
I'm going to go to the planner, and then Mr. Sachs may have a couple questions so we can enter them on the record, and you can answer them the best of your ability, and then we'll see if the board has it. It's okay.
Thank you, Mr. Sullivan. Thank you for your testimony. I think that's helpful. It answers some of the questions we have as far as what's the use going to be of the basement. Because as Mr. Sachs said for some of these other resolutions, which were very similar situations to your own, we do condition that if you're going to finish your basement or the D variance, that you don't use it for an Airbnb, you don't use it for living quarters, things like that. But my only, it's not really a concern. My only thing I have to say about this application is the plans you see in front of you on the screen are what I had to work with as far as, so there's no scaling. The survey was scaled, so I used that kind of as a helping hand to figure out how large the space was. And I think the applicant might have overestimated how large it is, which isn't a problem. I just wrote in my memo that potentially it's up to the board if they want to take a more conservative estimate, which is what the applicant put in, and that was 1,229 square feet for this finished area in the basement versus about 750 to 800 feet, where they put the walls, taking out the furnace area that's unfinished, and then the garage area because that won't be used. That's the level above. And so it's really up to the board. If you're more conservative and you do approve for the increase of 1,229 square feet gives you an FAR of 0.48. Whereas if you do 750, 800, use the higher one there, your FAR really leads to 0.42. The danger in that is that if they do exceed the number that I've come up with from scaling it, you might approve an FAR that's less than what it actually is. So I would recommend that the board go with what the applicant's number was, the 1,229. I think that area is larger than what they're actually improving, but if you do approve the higher FAR because they're coming for a D variance, it saves them time if they come back next time, or if they come to the building department for another request. This is another scenario where it was a planned development, so there was no FAR included in those bulk requirements. So as a general practice, we look to the R5 zone for the FAR, which is 0.40. They were under it before with just their first and second floor at 0.32, and so the FAR you'd be approving would be 0.48, like I just said, the more conservative estimate. And that's all I really have to say. Besides the condition that they won't use it for living space, for transient housing, for Airbnb. There's plenty of parking, and since all of the work is interior, there's no change to the outside look of the building.
Thank you. Mr. Sachs, you would agree that we should probably, if approval is given, do it at 0.48, correct?
I agree, and Mr. Chu, I heard you say there'll be no bathroom down there, so there'll be no plumbing. Okay, that's fine.
Any other questions you want to put on the record? We
No,
good?
I'm good.
As far as the proofs? Questions of the applicant to my left? To my right? This is a very, very common occurrence that we've been having where people are improving their basements. They're not moving outside the footprint of the house, but they do have to come in here for a D variance. I'll go to the public in this matter. This is application 44-17Z at number 2 Cobblestone Court for a finished basement. Is there anyone here in the courtroom this evening who'd like to be heard on this matter? No one has come forward or raised their hands. I'll close the public portion. Any final comments you'd like to make, sir?
No, I mean, I have a better drawing that indicating the...
No, we're satisfied with the pictures that we have, sir. No, it's okay. I appreciate you offering that.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
It's first time.
Yeah, I don't
I
know.
fully understand it, so I wanted you to feel comfortable.
Okay.
We're just citizens of the community, too.
Thank you.
Having heard this, does someone want to move this for approval?
Motion.
Mr. Walker and Mr. Connor seconds. Roll call, please.
Mr. Connor?
Yes.
Yes.
Ms. Phillips?
Yes.
Yes.
Ms. Chevrolet?
Yes.
Mr. Stoner?
Yes.
Mr. Stoner, I think, walked in probably while the testimony was going on, so we'll preclude him from voting on this one. I don't think he didn't hear all the testimony, so that's all right.
Okay, no,
Yeah.
I didn't call, but
Yeah.
I'm glad you make note of that.
Oh, did you call Mr. Scono?
Yes.
I thought you said
Close.
Stoner.
There we
Okay,
go.
I'm sorry.
It's okay. Chairman Sullivan?
Yes. We will have a resolution for this next month. You do have to get building permits. And like I said to all the residents, it's always gratifying when you reinvest in your own home rather than move somewhere outside of town. So it makes your home more valuable, and it makes value to the community. So we thank you. Okay, sir? Good evening. Yep, that is all.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.
4517Z, Glenn Indick, 44 Dumas Road. This is for a kitchen extension. It's an R9 zone. This will require a D variance. Sir, Board Attorney will swear you in.
Sir, please raise your right hand. You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God? All right, please state your name, spelling your last name, address for the record.
Glenn Indick, I-N-D-I-K, 44 Dumas Road, Old Bridge, New Jersey, 08856.
All right, Mr. Indick, I'll give you the same instruction that I gave to the other applicant. We do require a court reporter to be present during all D variances. Of course, a variance of this nature, we will permit you to waive that right. Is that your intention?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
All right, sir, I'll tell you the same thing I told the other applicant ahead of you. You are representing yourself. We want you to feel comfortable. We need you to explain what you're going to do, why you want to do that, how it's going to be accomplished. And then, of course, as I said, I'd go to the professionals, I'll go to the board, and I'll go to the public, and finally to you if you have any commentary. If you have any exhibits, I'd ask you to give them to the board secretary, Ms. Silverman. Okay, sir. Well, then you can begin at your own pace and just tell us what you're going to do and how you're going to do that, sir.
Thank you. I've been an Old Bridge resident for 15 years. I was married a few years ago. My family has grown substantially. The kitchen space that we currently have is not sufficient. My wife and I were looking at an existing screen house in our backyard, and we thought that would be a good space for a new kitchen, moving the kitchen from the second level to the first level. We'd like to put a permanent structure there. The size will slightly exceed the FAR, which is the reason for the variance application.
Okay. Ms. O'Kane?
Thank you. When he says slight, he means very slightly. So the patio space was a small, to the kitchen conversion, it's about an increase of 69 square feet. It does push over the FAR, which is currently at 0.27, which is the permitted max FAR, and it pushes it to 0.28, so he's 0.01 over. But again, as we've said before, FAR is black and white, and unfortunately that's the scenario for a D variance, and that's why it exists. The site also has some pre-existing nonconformities I just wanted to bring to the attention of the board. They are not being impacted. It's for the front yard setback off of Dumas and Owens Road, which are 26.9 and 28.3 feet, where 30 feet is required in both cases. And then the side yard setback, because the kitchen's pushing out a little bit off the patio, it is not a variance. It is not triggering any variances, but it's going from 13.14 feet to 10.08, where 10 is permitted. So it's still conforming. I just want to let the board know that it's pushing out a little bit. But overall, the plans looked good. I thought that the kitchen looked very nice. I don't see a problem with this variance.
Okay, so we would go from 0.27 to 0.28.
Correct.
And that would be the only thing we would need is the D4.
Correct.
Questions of the applicant to my left? To my right? Mr. Sachs, do you have anything you want to put on the record?
Not for this application, no.
Okay. Any final comments from you, sir?
No, thank you.
I'm going to go to the public on this matter. This is 45-17Z, located at 44 Dumas Road, for an extension of a kitchen. It's going to require a D4 variance. It's a de minimis almost variance at 0.28 from 0.27. Anyone in the public want to be heard on this matter, please raise your hand or come forward. No one has. I'll close the public portion. Any final comments from the board? Any final comments from yourself, sir? No. Someone want to move this for approval?
I'll move it.
Second.
Mr.
Connor.
Dewhurst? Mr. Connor and Mr. Dewhurst. Roll call, please.
Mr. Connor?
Yes.
Yes.
Mrs. Silver? Yes. Mr. Stoner?
Yes.
Mr. Walker?
Yes.
Ms. Chevalier?
Yes.
As I said to the applicant before you, it's always gratifying when you reinvest in your own home and stay here in the community rather than
I
move
agree.
elsewhere. And you've said you've been here 15 years. We hope you're here for another 20 or more. Okay, my vote is,
She was very helpful.
my vote is yes, sir.
Thank you.
You'll have a resolution next month.
Okay.
Make sure you get your permits.
I will.
Thank you for coming in. Same to you. I'll let the next applicant's professionals come up as I call it in. This is 11-17Z on the agenda. This is Overlook Associates, south side of Route 35 for 41-unit apartment building. Salvatore Alfieri Esquire, representing. Sir?
Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the board. Salvatore Alfieri on behalf of the applicant. Happy New Year to all of you.
Same, sir.
This is our, I believe, third public hearing. We're hoping to wrap up tonight. We have one witness who you haven't heard from yet, and that's the planner, but there were a couple points that were raised and questions raised at the last meeting that required brief testimony from some of the witnesses that did testify previously. And if I can, I would begin doing that now. Our architect would be the first witness, Mr. Raker. We're just checking to see if Kim has it.
It was emailed. When do you think it was emailed? About a week ago?
It was before the last hearing. No, it was before the last scheduled hearing that didn't happen.
Streetscape elevation?
If the board may recall, I think one of the board members or one of the members of the public requested that we do some comparison to give you a context as to the height of this building in relation to the other buildings. And the architect did prepare an exhibit to show you that. So that's why that's the sole purpose of his testimony.
He was previously sworn, as I recall.
That's correct.
Still under oath, sir. We wish everyone, the board wishes everyone here a healthy, happy New Year. We see several members of the Township Council are here, Mr. Biscotti, Ms. Walker, Ms. Belli, welcome. I saw Mr. Merwin somewhere as well. Yeah, you have a quorum.
Somebody may have to step in.
Happy New Year to you, sir.
Thank you.
You're not taking this down, right?
For those that may be watching at home, we're looking for an exhibit via the computer network.
Looking for.
It's elevation.
One of the downsides of technology.
Mm-hmm.
There we go.
Okay, Mr. Raker, Larry, I think we left off at 8:12 is actually, Kim keeps track? Okay.
Kim keeps track. I won't doubt her.
So this would be A13th based on my records.
Yes.
Kim. And Mr. Raker, would you, again, introduce yourself to the board so they know who you are from the prior testimony, please?
My name is Jack Raker. I'm with Minnow and Wasco Architects and Planners, and I'm the architect on this project.
All right, and would you identify the exhibit that you're going to be testifying to this evening?
What I'm showing here is a streetscape elevation, although I'm not showing the elevations of the existing structures, just for lack of time and detail. I showed photographs of the structures underneath, and I'll walk you through that. So this is an elevation, a streetscape elevation from Route 35, and this shows the grade of Route 35, which is this dashed line that you see going up, and the grade at the structures is the darker line coming down. This is the property to the left, small one-story. This is the property to the right, which has a somewhat buried garage and retaining walls, so that's why you see the grade jump down like this, come across and up, and you can see the photograph here. Let's see if I can zoom in a little bit. Might be a little bit better. And the property to the right, here, the structure to the right. And then there's a long retaining wall along Route 35 right here. You can see that, and then a one-story structure, ranch-type structure there. And you can see that the difference in grading, as this is Route 35 as it comes down, but grade as it works away from Route 35 is actually going up. So you could see how much higher grade is adjacent to our property. And then with those structures sitting on top of that grade, the relative heights are somewhat similar, at least of this structure. This structure sits down low in retaining, and you can see that in this photograph down here, right here. Not sure I can't get rid of that. I'll move this up a little bit. Here. But these structures are considerably far away as well. The distance from this structure to these two structures, I have that number here as well. Whoops. It's approximately 147 feet, almost 148 feet to this structure, and almost 200 feet.
Say this
to
structure, which lot are we talking about, Mr.
I
Baker?
apologize, let me just roll up a little bit. Lot 299
Lot 299, you said is
is about 147 feet, almost 148 feet. And then to lot 297, that is almost 200 feet, 196 feet 2 inches by our calculations. And then what I'm showing here is the allowable building height on this lot, which is here, and the allowable building height on this lot, the allowable building height on our lot, and then what our proposed height is. And I just transpose those lines through to the adjacent lots.
So the maximum building height on lot, if you can scroll down just a second, lot 297 is actually higher than the
Than the proposed structure, yes.
proposed structure. Okay.
Or, not sorry, than the existing structure.
Existing structure.
And that's really all we have, Mr. Baker. It's something I believe the board members asked for.
I believe Mr. Remse asked to clarify for you guys the relative heights.
That's the end of your testimony for now?
Yes.
Mr. Remsen?
Mr. Chairman, this is the first time I'm seeing this, and
Me as well.
it is what it is. It shows the heights of the building relative to the others. I wanted to make sure that the board understood how the four-story building's going to be in relationship to surrounding properties.
Mr. Barron, any commentary?
No, not really. This wasn't submitted, so we had an opportunity to review it in detail, but it does look like it generally represents the grades that are, the topography of the survey.
Board members, any questions of this applicant? All right. I see there are people who are raising their hands, and I will recognize you during the public portion, but right now it's the applicant's time to prosecute the application, and with his professional witnesses. There will be a public portion, however, okay? So please keep your questions in mind. Back to you, Mr. Alfieri.
Thank you. Thanks. Mr. Kennel? The next witness is Scott Kennel. He is our traffic expert. He also testified previously, and he's going to supplement his testimony as it relates to traffic.
Mr. Kennel, you're still under oath, I
Yes.
remind you. Okay.
Yes, my intent is just to briefly supplement prior testimony, and it relates to the projected traffic generation of the proposed development as it relates to the existing uses on site. And as I testified previously, the apartment building would generate approximately 21 to 25 trips during the morning and afternoon peak hours, whereas the existing uses on site can generate anywhere from 35 to 40 trips, thereby indicating that the proposed development is less intensive from a traffic standpoint.
But that intensity would likely be the PM peak rather than the AM peak, right?
That's correct.
Unless it were converted to some other type of restaurant, but the current use would be PM.
That's correct.
Okay. And that was either that witness, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Remsen.
Mr. Kennel, the traffic generation is going to be morning and afternoon peak, right, for the proposed residential development?
That's what I had documented and identified in our traffic report, correct.
So the current use doesn't really have any morning traffic generation, or little, if any?
Well, the same is true for the PM at this point. I mean, but it is an existing bar, restaurant, so there could be activity, and we relied on data published by the IT as far as this type of use and what it could generate.
But as a bar or a restaurant, its peak generation would be afternoon, evening?
Typically, yes.
And how does that stack up with the proposed use with PM peak use?
The PM traffic generation for the apartments would be approximately 25 trips. And with the existing uses, which are the residential and the existing bar or restaurant, would be 40 trips.
40 trips. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to make sure the board understood that there's really little to no morning peak generation trips from a bar or restaurant, and so it's hard to compare of what the two uses are. They're completely different.
I agree. Mr. O'Barry, anything?
Mr. Kennel, could you speak to, I had expressed a concern previously about the visibility of traffic when a loading vehicle is exiting the loading zone. Could you speak to that in your professional opinion?
Well, again, those issues were going to be dealt in detail at the site plan. The critical element here is as it deals with traffic entering and exiting Route 35, and at the location of the site, we have this site distance that meets and exceeds the DOT requirements. But again, as I recall, the site engineer testified that should this use be approved, at the time we provide site plans, we will address those in more detail.
Yeah, just to remind the board that the only relief the applicant's seeking this evening is the apartment use, which is not permitted, the density and the height. The site has to work. If we come back with a site plan, if this is approved, and we lose units because of site constraints and site plan details, that's the extent of it. If you do grant us relief, there'll be a maximum density that can only go down, it can't go up.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else, sir?
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman. In my report, I don't know if it's for Mr. Kennel or the site engineer. I did have a concern about an articulated moving van. In other words, the tractor-trailer type. I see that they were able to accommodate a fixed body van, but my question to either Mr. Kennel or the site engineer is, how would the site be able to accommodate an articulated moving van?
Well, typically, again, if you have site constraints and given the type of residential uses, there's coordination to use fixed trucks rather than articulated or tractor trailers. that's accommodated on a regular basis, where if there is a situation where a box truck is best suited, then that is coordinated with the tenant and with the moving company.
But there is a potential for an articulated truck to come here if one of those types of deliveries where half the delivery is for one tenant and then for another site where they break it up. Maybe someone else is moving somewhere else in Old Bridge or in the surrounding area.
Well, again, based on my experience, again, that is a coordination of the tenant and with the moving company to, again, if the site's designed to only accommodate a fixed or a box truck, then that's the criteria they have to work with when they're either moving in or moving out.
That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Board members on my left, questions of this witness? And on my right. Mr. Sachs?
No, I'm good.
Mr. Remsen, although this is not the vote for this, tonight we're dealing with maximum building height and
Density.
dwelling, the density, correct?
That is correct.
What was our final on the paper street? Who was going to own that and maintain it?
I don't think there was any resolution on it.
There was none, correct?
That's correct.
I could respond to
Oh, okay.
what we're proposing, or what the alternatives are. There are essentially three alternatives. One would be that the governing body agrees to vacate it. The second alternative is that the governing body agrees to vacate it and retain some form of easement to provide utilities and/or access. And then the third alternative is we develop it, it doesn't get vacated, we develop it per municipal standards. Mr. Remsa suggests that if we take that alternative, we have to agree to maintain it at least until it's opened up to the public for some other access.
And that last option also opens the door for a whole host of new bulk variances, because now there's setback line issues and things.
That's correct, and that's why we're not asking for bulk variance relief as part of the D-variance relief package. If we get to that point, those bulk variances may or may not be relevant. We'd have to go to the governing body. And as you know, there is a whole layer of outside agency approval that would be required before we ever come back for a site plan.
All right, and if you did get an approval from the governing body, if this is acted favorably upon, then you would be seeking whatever bulk variance relief would be required at the site plan level?
That's correct.
Okay.
Anything else, Mr. O'Fear?
Yes. Before we bring the planner up, two other points. One is that the fire official issued a report dated January 9th of 17, and there's one unsatisfactory comment in there. That comment we did agree to address. The engineer did not make the plan change yet, but certainly as a condition of any approval, we will address all of the fire official's comments. And there's only one left that we have not addressed as of tonight. And that relates to, I believe, fire lanes. Second point, and last on my end, is before we bring the planner up, is I had requested, I wanted to get a copy of the resolution renewing the liquor license, because although Mr. Russo testified briefly as to the use that currently exists on site, I wanted to get the council resolution renewing the most recent liquor license for 2017, and I have that resolution here, 223-17. I have multiple copies. And I just want, because it does have certain conditions that I think the board should be aware of before they act on the application. Yeah, that's A14, and it's a public record, so that's why I didn't think, I have multiple copies. And while it's being passed out, I just want to highlight a couple of points. The license was renewed in June of 17, and the conditions were that on Friday and Saturday evenings from 6 p.m. to closing, the applicant had to have a person at the door to check ID. The second condition was the parking lot had to be patrolled from 9 p.m. to closing to ensure that people are not gathering. In addition, they had to have a video surveillance system to record the activity within the parking lot, and that system had to have capacity to store that data for at least 7 days. So it is what it is, but I just wanted the board to be aware of those conditions. And that leads us to Ms. Coffin, our planner.
Coffin, please raise your right hand. Swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, I do.
All right, please state your name, spelling your last name, professional affiliation for the record.
Allison Coffin, Coffin. I work for James W. Higgins Associates out of Ocean Township.
And we're seeking to have you qualified as a professional planner.
Coffin has testified before this board for many years, and everyone here, I'm sure, is familiar with absent the two new members that we have. Just let her place on her record her credentials for their benefit, sir. Thank you.
I have a bachelor's degree from Boston College. I'm also a licensed professional planner in the state of New Jersey, and I'm certified by the American Institute of Certified Planners. I've had that license and certification for about 14 years now, and in that time I've been accepted as an expert witness in front of boards in more than 80 communities throughout the state, primarily Monmouth, Ocean, and Middlesex counties, because I don't like to drive far at night.
I did that for their benefit, and board members, what that is just qualifying the witness that to show an expertise in some particular field. This is her field in planning, and that's what we do with every witness. However, she has appeared before this board so many times, we recognize her credentials and we accept it. But thank you for putting that on the record. At least you got a little showcase there at the time anyway.
Thank
you.
Thank you.
You haven't done that here in a while, so.
That's true.
Go right ahead.
And Allison, as you heard me discuss a few moments ago, I summarized the variance relief that we're seeking as it relates to this phase of the application, and you had an opportunity to review the plans, the testimony, and the master plan and zoning ordinance. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And you have come to an opinion as to whether the board is justified in granting the relief that's being requested?
That's correct.
And would you explain to the board what your opinion is and how you arrived at it?
Sure. The property that we're looking at tonight is an irregularly shaped parcel. It consists of multiple tax lots that are separated by an unimproved right-of-way, that's Greenwood Avenue. The site has frontage on Route 35 southbound and Prospect Avenue. The portion of the site north of Greenwood contains 3 residential structures, and in those structures there are 4 residential units, so one of them's a 2-family. The portion south of Greenwood contains a nightclub, go-go bar use, and has significant amount of wetlands and floodplain area. The applicant is proposing to remove all of the structures on the property and redevelop the site with a 4-story apartment building that contains 41 units, of which 6 are low and moderate income housing rental units. A total of 78 parking spaces are proposed, including both those beneath the structure and within the exterior parking lot. Access for this use is from Route 35 southbound, but there is emergency access also provided along Prospect Avenue. The property is at present split zone between the R5 zone and ER, but all of the proposed development activities are located within the R5 zoned portion of the site. Apartments and multifamily housing is not a permitted use in this zone. Therefore, the applicant is requesting a D1 variance for the use. We're also requesting a D5 variance for density because we have a proposed density of 12.5 dwelling units per acre, where the maximum is 7. And this is somewhat subsumed within that use variance for the multifamily housing, as the density for the zone is designed for single-family housing. There's also a D6 variance that's requested for the height, where the height of the proposed structure is 4 stories and 43 feet 11 inches, 43 feet 11 inches, and a maximum of 2.5 stories and 35 feet is permitted. There's also going to be some bulk variances and waivers, which will be requested later at site plan. This property is definitely a challenge to develop because it has a number of existing environmental features which dictate what areas of the site are usable. But I don't want to go into those in any detail because the board is going to have to be considering them later at site plan, and I don't want to be redundant. It's my opinion that special reasons exist for the granting of the requested D variances that the board's looking at tonight, in that the site is particularly suited to the proposed uses, and therefore there's no significant detriment to the zone plan or the surrounding residential properties that would result from these variances. First, looking at the particular suitability of the site for the use, the density, and the site, we have a subject site that is a unique parcel for the R5 zone in several ways. First, it contains significant wetlands area to the rear, which prohibit use and development away from the highway frontage. So the usable area of the site is forced right up against the Route 35 frontage. And this area has predominant frontage along the highway, which is not a feature that is generally desirable for new single-family development. The site is separated from the surrounding adjacent residential neighborhood by way of severe grade changes. The pre-existing grade on the site puts it almost fully within the floodplain, and the existing structures do not comply with the Flood Hazard Control Act rules. Any new structure that's built on this site would need to have a first habitable floor located 1 foot above the flood hazard elevation, and therefore would be elevated significantly above grade. This would be true whether it was a conforming use or use that requires use variance relief. The majority of the property has been used since 1992 for a non-permitted commercial use. This use, the bar/nightclub use, is not ideally located in a residential zone adjacent single-family residential development. This use does maintain its license and permits to continue to operate on the site in the future. The proposed use and density, the multifamily residential apartment use, makes efficient and appropriate use of what is a very challenging site. The proposal eliminates the non-conforming commercial restaurant bar use and replaces it with a residential apartment use, which is more consistent with the residential zoning of the site and less detrimental to the nearby homes than reopening that bar would be. The proposed apartments are more appropriate for highway frontage than conforming single-family homes would be. And the multifamily structure that's proposed with the parking at ground level will more easily function on the site and look more aesthetically pleasing on the site than several single-family homes would be with the required elevated first floors. Unlike homes, individual homes built up on pilings, a larger multifamily structure with the parking below can be and has been designed to conceal the fact that the first habitable floor is not at grade. The proposed height in this case makes sense given the context of the use that's requested and the unique features of this lot. The additional height here is in large part due to the need to elevate that first floor. Only 3 of the 4 floors of the structure are habitable space. The ground level is enclosed parking. The height will not impact the adjacent residential area because we have the homes to the north and the northwest will be fully screened by existing trees, which will remain in a conservation easement. The proposed apartments will not be easily visible from this area, and the site where the structures are proposed to be built is at a much lower elevation than most of its nearby neighbors to the northwest, which are the only ones likely to see this structure. We have a change in grade between the subject site and the nearest residence, as well as a significant setback from the adjacent residence. That means that the apparent height of this structure, when seen from these lots, would be similar to a conforming height structure, would be if the grades were even. There is no substantial detriment to the granting of the requested variances. The proposed use is more appropriate to the adjacent residential area than the existing uses. The traffic, noise, odors, and other potential detrimental impacts would be far less than could be generated by a fully operational nightclub use on the site if that were to reopen. The height will not be imposing when viewed from the adjacent residential area. Again, there's a grade change between the subject site and the adjacent properties, as well as a significant setback. The 147 and change feet between this structure and the nearest residential home is more than 3 times the height proposed, which is more than enough to mitigate that additional height. The last test for variance is whether or not it would substantially impair the intent and purpose of the master plan and zoning ordinance. Now, multifamily residential, though it's not permitted in the zone, is a use that's more in keeping with the intended character of the zone than the existing use. And the purpose of that R5 zone is given as the purpose of the zone is to protect existing areas of intensive suburban development at a medium-high density. The proposed density is higher than the targeted density in the master plan, but is still at a medium-high density. And the nature of this application, however, is to protect the existing adjacent development, which is a suburban area, by eliminating an inappropriate commercial use from the zone and replacing it with a more residential one.
That's all the planning testimony we have, Mr. Chair.
Remsen.
Ms. Coffin, did you take a look at the site proposed concept plan and the relationship of the parking area that's relatively close to the residents that I believe are to, I guess it would be north of the site. There are some homes that are very close to to the proposed parking area. And I have a concern about any impact on those residents with the parking. I agree with you that the building itself is much farther away from any residence, but it's the number of units that are proposed that are driving the number of parking spaces that are needed. Then that parking area has to be then pushed relatively close to, I guess there's 1, 2, 3 residential homes that have been there for a very long time.
Yeah, I see where you're talking about. There's still a significant grade change at that area. There's a retaining wall, and there's an opportunity to put, because there's about a 9-foot setback from the nearest parking space to that lot line. There's an opportunity to put significant screening in there in the form of landscaping to make sure that those parking spaces are invisible to the neighbors.
And because of the relationship of the parking to those homes, the parking area is going to have to be lit up at night. And what kind of impact will that be on the residents?
I think it's something that could be addressed at site plan to make sure that the lighting on that site is directed into the site as house side shields on the light so that there's no overflow onto the surrounding properties.
And I believe farther to the south, there are some also residents, I think they're off the site plan, but there are other residents that are near, well, let's see, I'm not quite sure how close they are. But I believe there's, to the south, there's a farther away residential neighborhood. Do you see any impact farther away from?
Are we?
I guess it's Prospect Avenue. There are more homes down that way.
No, I don't think there'll be any impact to the homes on Prospect.
See, I'm reviewing Mr. Chairman, I'm reviewing my comments. She's touched on some of them. And also in terms of the building height relative to the other homes that are in the area. I saw the exhibit for the first time tonight, and I want to make sure that from a planning perspective, there's no negative impact on those homes that are existing, I guess, to the north.
No, it's my opinion there'd be no impact. Between the elevation changes at grade and the distance from the nearest property, no, there's no impact.
That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Barrett?
I would defer to Mr. Remser regarding the variances.
Any further testimony?
Have questions of?
I'm going to ask.
Oh, no,
She's
none from.
finished testifying.
Yes, she is.
Questions to my left?
I have a question for Mr. Alfieri.
I don't know if he has to answer questions.
I'll try.
Ask him.
But I'm not under oath.
It's a small, it seems
He can say what he wants.
It seems like it's a small question, but you said that you would take a look at the fire official's report and address those, but you address those satisfactorily to him?
Oh, yeah, in fact, the most recent report, they were all addressed satisfactorily, except the one point, which we agreed to previously,
Okay.
it's just we neglected to put it on the plan, but yes, we will address
Thank
it.
Anybody on my right? Mr. Sachs?
No.
Thanks, Allison. Mr. Russo wants to come up one last time, and he forgot to I don't know if he forgot to mention something, or he wants to emphasize something, and then we're finished, Mr. Chair.
And he is also
Still under oath.
Still under
Come on
oath,
up,
and
Mr.
he's the
Russo.
applicant,
Right.
the principal of the applicant.
How are you? Greg Russo.
All yours.
I'm good. Okay. No, I know. Yeah, Sal said I testified at the last hearing, and but there was a few things that were brought up at the last hearing after I testified that I just want to clarify, and maybe a few things I want to reiterate. At the last hearing, Councilman Merwin came up and he testified, basically saying, you know, that.
Just for the record, he was not a councilman at that time.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. Well, Mr. Merwin came up and, you know, basically said that my team didn't do A, B, C, or D. You know, I was putting the cart before the horse. I invested $50,000 to try and get something done. I just want him to understand, and anybody that doesn't understand, that I'm only here today for the use variance. I'm the first one that understands that if I'm fortunate enough to get the variance, that I have a to-do list a mile long as far as, you know, the DEP, the DOP, the site plan. I understand all that, but it would have been pointless for me to go out and do all those things, get all those applications and get all those approvals, and then come here and not get the variance. So I just want to make that clear to anybody that just didn't understand. That's the one main point. The second point is, when it comes to the neighbors, I think that, and the board members, I think that my team did a very good job of addressing any issues that they had, or you guys had, or your professionals had, as far as making modifications or changes, as far as the height, the fire issues, the gate, or anything like that. And I just want to let it be known that, again, if it goes through, that I'd be more than willing to continue to just, work with them, any concerns they have, anything that can be resolved. I actually encourage them to reach out to me, that if there's anything we could go, if it goes forward, as the process goes, that I'm willing to sit with them and work through any issues they have, if they can be resolved as construction goes, if it goes through. I just wanted to get those 2 points across. Because like I said at the last hearing, I feel pretty strong with my decision. And I mean, just looking at the 2 options there, from the club to the building, what could be, I feel very strong about everything. And I just wanted to throw that out there before you opened it up to the public. That's all, so they understand.
Thank you, sir.
That concludes our presentation, Mr. Chair.
Do you need a break before we go to the public portion? No? Okay, I'm going to go to the public portion before we do anything else, and then we'll come. Board, any final questions of that witness? Mr. Russo. I'm sorry I didn't ask. Does anybody have a question for Mr. Russo? No? Okay. I'll do that, and I'll go to the public portion first, and then we'll come back for board commentary before, if you're going to seek a vote. This is matter 1117Z. This is Overlook Associates, south side of Route 35, between Greenwood and Prospect Avenue, for 41-unit apartment building. Most of you here are very familiar with this. You've been here before. I'd like to entertain as many questions as I possibly can. Please, if you've been here before, you know the protocol. You need to come up, state who you are, you'll be placed under oath, and you can make your commentary. We'd ask you, please try not to be repetitive, but we do want to hear from each and every one of you. So, in an orderly fashion, I don't know if you have any particular order, but I'll ask the first person to raise their hand who would like to come up and be heard. Sir, I'll take you right here in the first row. Board Attorney, swear you in, sir.
Sir, please raise your right hand. Swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God. Please state your name, spelling your last name, address for the record.
Thomas Kapila, K-I-P-I-L-A, 274 Prospect Avenue, Lawrence Harbor.
Thank you.
You can be seated if you care.
I guess first I'd like to say thank you for all your time. This is a sensitive matter here. I guess secondly, I don't think I can top Ms. Kaufman's speech.
Nobody can.
And thirdly, I'd like to say that I know for a fact this is our 3rd meeting. I guess where I want to start briefly is a couple things that I heard here, and you've heard from me in the past. The traffic issue, to me, I don't know if anybody's accounting the fact that we have approximately 9 school bus trips that run down that particular, proposed to run down that highway. From approximately 6:40 to 8:40, you're accounting for 3 trips between the young children, the middle school, and the high school. You're talking about a 12:30 drop-off on 35 in the middle of the afternoon for the preschoolers. And we're talking about 3 more drop-offs in the afternoon that begin at approximately 2:40 and end with 2 high school and middle school drop-offs that drop off approximately prior to, just before 5 o'clock. So total that number of buses that were, and being a guy who travels up and down the highway since this started, I really can't see too many projects that are directly connected to a state highway. I don't see anything. The closest I could find was down at Hazlet, which was the retirement community, which has rear access. I don't see anything. I drive Route 17, 202, 206. I drive everywhere, Mawa, Totowa, you name it. So that's something that I think really needs to be looked hard at, which Eugene had brought up. Another subject briefly, and I don't want to hit home, but this is hard for me to get out. I don't speak in front of people all the time, is the max height. We are only proposing and showing max elevation on the houses that are directly on 35. If you go up the road and look at the elevations, Prospecting Green would go up. So when the leaves fall and the proposed foliage that we're going to put up in the middle of the winter with a skyline that's gray, it's going to light up. It's going to light up. I don't know how you're going to hide it. So with those few things, I guess I could sit here and go through all the things that I was putting together, but have any, ladies and gentlemen, have any of you ever even looked at the FEMA's VE and AE water lines? Have we all seen that? Has everyone seen that? I'd like to be able to pass that up to you so you can get an idea of where we're really trying to build here. And I guess the only other thing that I would show while the decision is being made on this project is, has anyone actually seen where this proposed project, and I'll show you briefly, and I'm going to hand them up, and I would encourage you to look at
Before
them.
you hand anything up, the board attorney's going to have to see if it can be admitted first.
Okay. Basic general stuff. Would you like to look at it?
Yeah, why don't you tell me what it is and how you obtained it?
Online, it's your basic fundamental outlay of the FEMA's National Flood Hazard Layer, official layer. Anybody can find it online. And photographs that were taken of the tidal flood damage and the water line on that existing building after Hurricane Sandy. Personal photographs.
All right, so these were photographs that you took?
Yes. I didn't personally take them. My neighbor took them and
All right.
handed them to me.
Well, all right, then, we can't introduce that unless we can the person who took the photograph can authenticate it. If that person happens to be here.
That's what I was looking for.
All right,
Okay.
then that person could testify to that.
Okay.
Okay? That's just one of the rules of
So
evidence.
that was it.
Okay.
Just the height. We're not showing the heights. The school buses. And I guess what's in it for the town? What's in it for the community? Once this project is built, and we need infrastructure, and we need sidewalks, and we have water problems, what's in it? Am I, the taxpayer, gonna pay for it? What kind of money is generated from this project that would pay for the problems that are going to have to be upgraded down the road? And what's in it for me? We're talking about handing over property that is municipal property, potential options that we have, what we're gonna do with this property, whether we're gonna hand it over to them, or whether we're gonna maintain it. But as a taxpaying citizen, my family's been here since 1951. I bought my grandmother's house from my father and both of his brothers. I used to catch fish in sheets with my cousin from Cliffwood Beach. I still have family in this community scattered everywhere. I think I have a right to say that this is not good for our community. Just because Mr. Russo bought a slice of pizza at Lisa's Pizza doesn't make him qualified to know what's good for this community and what's not. And mistakes have been made in this community over the years. Again, 35 years I've been playing in this, up and down that beach. I don't want to see this become an eyesore when the next flood comes through, or when the next problem comes through, and this thing gets downgraded into something that it shouldn't be. There's no access to this thing. It's an isolated part of a community that has they have no ties to the community here. These are just people who are renting, racing up and down Highway 35. Where are their ties to my community? They're not there. So that's about all I have to say, is what's in it for me? What's in it for my community? And what bills am I going to get on my taxes down the road? And that's all I have.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Next, who wants to come up? Ma'am? Board Attorney will swear you in.
Swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Please state your name, spelling your last name, address for the record.
Teresa Burns, B-U-R-N-S, 347 Miller Ave, Lawrence Harbor, New Jersey.
Thank you.
Okay. So I know that he had spoken about the buses. I just wanted to reiterate that the last bus comes in at 5 p.m. My son takes that late bus. I'd also like to, I want to reiterate the traffic. There is a 35-mile-an-hour stretch that one person was struck and killed on while walking on Lawrence Harbor Parkway. And so recreational use of the area, how is the traffic going to impact my children when I have to walk to school and people are not obeying those 25-mile-an-hour signs? I'd also like to ask about the height. Are we sure that our 2 closest fire departments have ladders that can reach that height? Is that answered? Do we have that information?
They have reviewed that.
Okay. And then I'd also like to ask if there was an impact study done on the schools. How will that impact?
There generally would be a community impact statement. I'm not sure that that was provided, but I don't think it had to be provided for purposes of this particular application. so.
Okay, then I would like to reiterate that both of the schools in the area are Title I schools, which means that they already receive free and reduced lunches because of the amount of children living in poverty in our town. So I'd like to reiterate that kids are receiving need from the federal government because of the area. And that was about it. That's it, thanks.
Thank you very much. Next, lady in the back. Board Attorney will swear you in.
Swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God? I do. All right, please state your name, spelling your last name, address for the
Karen
record.
Fisher, Fischer, 310 Prospect Avenue, Lawrence Harbor. My point is, if that first floor, sure. If the first level is not suitable for living, it's suitable for parking, it's not going to flood. Things are in place for that already? So that the underground parking wouldn't flood.
I didn't know you were asking me.
Because as I
Address
can...
the board, and we'll try and elicit an answer.
Sure. So what's going to be put in place where that's not going to flood and they're not going to park on Prospect Avenue? Because I still see that as a problem when they have company. Where are they going to park? They're going to park on our street in front of my house. So what's going to be done about that?
Well,
Most units are going to have 2 cars, I would say, probably. So there's not even 2 parking spaces now for each unit. So where is the excess parking going to go? Prospect Avenue, right in front of my house. So what's going to be done where I can park, I can have company? Already it's a crowded street. So, what's in place for that? And if it's going to flood, that's going to be another problem. And I can tell you from, excuse me, from what I saw, I don't have pictures, but I saw that area after the hurricane, and it was a mess. It was a mess. So I don't understand why anyone would want to even take that project on, but that's his prerogative for that. And everything looks good on paper, but you don't live there. So this is not going to impact you. It's going to impact us who live there. All these changes, all this height thing. 4 stories, I could tell you we do go on an upgrade. I am going to see it. I could see the highway. And who's to make the decision? We don't want a bar. We want to have a development instead with more traffic. Who's making that decision for us? We never had 40 cars there coming and going at night, where we're going to have more traffic with an apartment. I'm sorry, you can do studies, but the truth is you're going to have more cars, a lot more cars than we had with the bar restaurant. And again, you're making a decision for us. Don't we have any say in it? What goes there? It's our neighborhood. It affects us. It doesn't affect you people. It doesn't affect the people who don't live in the neighborhood. It affects us. So I think we should have more say in what goes in there. And that's pretty much, outside of everything else we've touched on, that's pretty much what I have to say.
Thank you, Ms. Fisher.
Thank you.
Yes. The board attorney will swear you in.
Please raise your right hand. You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God? All right, please state your name, spelling your last name, address for the record.
Rose Cordero, Cordero, and I live at 340 Greenwood Avenue, Lawrence Harbor. Right now, I'm currently the last house on the dead end of Greenwood Avenue, so my property overlooks the wetlands and the marshlands, and I could see the back of the old Go-Go bar. And I don't mind it. I would much rather have another bar than looking at the rooftop of an apartment complex and the back of an apartment complex. I'm worried about the lights, the traffic, the noise, people coming and going, slamming their car doors or all hours of the night. And also, is there anything in the proposal where they might eventually extend Greenwood Avenue from my part of Greenwood Avenue to go down to 35?
Talking about an extension of the road? I mean, that would obviously have to be a decision
Yeah.
of the municipality.
Yeah,
So, yeah, that's,
But there's nothing in the plans of that as of
not that we're aware
right
of.
That's
now.
not what they've brought forth in the application, no.
Okay. Because like I said, I like looking out over the wetlands and seeing the marshlands. I don't want to look at back of an apartment building. So.
Very much, ma'am.
Swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God? Please state your name, spelling your last name, address for the record.
Arlene Velez, V-E-L-E-Z, 640 Forest Avenue, Lawrence Harbor. Everybody touched on a lot of good things, but I'm still amazed that you're going to look at a 43-foot tall building and allow that because the elevation of the other buildings are up on a hill. But don't look at it that way. Look at it, what if those buildings were lower? You're allowing 4 stories to be built up against a hill with 2-story houses. Another thing, they're saying that nobody's going to be affected by the structure other than the 3 houses adjacent. I don't see that. I live on Forest Avenue, a dead-end street. My house faces Margaret's Creek. The wildlife is unbelievable there. And we lost it a bit after Sandy. We thought we'd never get it back. We did. And now I'm worried that if this building starts going up there, is it going to affect the wildlife? Another one. I'm going to see that from my windows. Maybe not in the summer when the trees are dense, but I'm going to see it when the leaves are gone. I'm going to see it when I walk my grandchildren to the edge so that we can look out at the marsh and watch the wildlife. That building is going to be visible to my street. You can't allow something that the neighborhood don't want. None of us want this. I've been to every single meeting, and a lot of my community's been here. Looking at it, it looks great. But the bar's not even open. There's no traffic there. And if I heard correctly earlier, to renew the license of the bar, does he own the bar? And if he don't get the license, is he gonna build this building? What's the deal? Does he?
Well, that hasn't been presented to us. All we're doing is listening to
Then
an
why would he
application.
bring up getting a liquor license at this particular point?
No, there's a-
Apparently, to let you know it's still active.
Yeah, there's a liquor license that runs with the
Does
property.
Mr.
Yeah.
Russo own that land, that bar?
No, he does not.
Yeah.
So why
He's
would
the
you bring
contract.
that up
He's the
into
contract.
this?
He's the contract purchaser. So if he doesn't get the, can I respond?
Yeah, absolutely.
If he doesn't get the approval, then the owner who currently owns and can run the bar will continue to own and run the bar.
Why isn't the bar open now?
I can't answer. I don't know anything about the owner.
Ms. Velez, that's not an issue before this board, so.
Well,
yeah.
another thing I want to reiterate, the traffic when we had the bar open was at a minimal, and it started at 9 o'clock at night, and it went to maybe 2. There was nothing during the day. I see that lot from my house looking out my windows. I could see the bay. he puts that building there, anybody on my street's not gonna see that bay. And that's not fair to our community. We don't wanna look at the back of these buildings and see a parking lot full of lights and cars. 2 cars to a unit? You're looking at 84 cars, 82 cars. How is that gonna be fitting into our traffic? None of the traffic mentioned the U-turns, again. Our U-turns aren't capable of handling what we have now, let alone 42 more units. I beg you, vote no. We don't want it. We'd rather see nothing than 41 more units on top of what we're getting in back of Bridgepoint. Give us a break here. We don't want it. And how many times do we have to come up here and tell you? We don't want it. The way that area is, yeah, like the developer said, well, you can't put a house that close to the road. No, you can't. And if you put a dwelling, a single family, it's got to be on pilings because of the flooding. So is the garage in this unit going to flood? Did they even do a perk test to see, is it capable of holding the foundation underneath? Is it capable of dealing with the flood that we could possibly get again? Why take that risk? Why give us the hardship in our community and give us something we don't want? I beg you, say no. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Velez.
Ma'am, please raise your right hand. I'll swear you in. Swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Please state your name, spelling your last name, address for the record.
Donna Wilson, W-I-L-S-O-N, 256 Shoreland Circle in the Lawrence Harbor section of Old Bridge.
Thank you.
I guess what I'm trying to do is understand what is happening here tonight. We've heard a lot of things about traffic and flooding, but primarily this evening is to look at a height variance and a density variance. Is that correct?
Yes.
And the height here compared to the maximum allowed height is about another, what, 10 feet?
35 feet is maximum.
35 feet, and this is 43, okay. And 4 stories are here where the allowable stories is 2.5?
Well, no, it's based on the height. The height is 35 feet.
Right, but,
your
or
house is generally right, your standard house would be a 2.5-story house.
Okay, so instead of 2.5, we have 4 stories here. And I guess while I'm up here, it seems like a very strategic selection of the elevation drawing because there are additional homes, I'm going to use the word behind, away from 35, that are perhaps more affected than shown by selecting the homes that are a bit higher. And we've heard testimony, I won't go over it again, that, yeah, they're going to see it. And my other question is on the density. The density for this proposal is?
Well, the density in this zone is 7 dwelling units per acre. This is 12.5.
So that's, we're doing a lot of zone jumping here.
That's what this board, well, that's what this board does.
Not just a little bit more.
This board deals
I've
with
been before this
deviations
board
from the zone,
with
right.
other people sitting on it, and, you know, there was like a little bit here and a little bit there that I needed. Lawrence Harbor lots are very narrow. You can't swing a cat without needing a variance. And this just seems like way too big a jump. And we've heard the objections. And if I understand, if things should go forward tonight, that there will be additional meetings where we can bring up the concerns about the traffic, the flooding, et cetera. Is that correct?
Yes.
And tonight, all that's being looked at is height and density.
Yeah, just so the public's aware, is that the applicant has a choice of either proceeding on a bifurcated basis, which is what this is this evening.
Okay.
So they're seeking the use variance, because these are 2 use variances. If they're successful, then
R2?
there's 2 of them. There's one for density
sorry,
and one,
I misheard
and
you.
one for height. If they're successful, then they will have to come back for site plan approval, preliminary and final site plan approval, bulk variance relief, and any relief for any design waivers. If this application is not acted favorably upon, then there'll be no use variance granted, so.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Go ahead, sir. I'll go to you next.
Sir, please raise your right hand. Swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, I do.
All right, please state your name, spelling your last name, address for the record.
Last name Piguzov. It's Piguzov. 311 Prospect Avenue. Okay. My wife is data analyst, and she has a saying.
Your wife is?
Data analyst.
Data analyst.
Can you just speak into the microphone so?
Yes, and she has a saying. If you torture data enough, it's always confessed. That's what was happening here all the time. We have all experts, which one are professional, and they will torture this data and tell you whatever they want to represent to you, but it's not actual facts. First of all, I see they're showing the grades of Prospect Avenue, but it's only Prospect Avenue grades are high. The rest of all Lawrence Harbor neighborhood is grades much, much lower. I don't know the numbers, I didn't check it, but I think it's the same grade as this lot where the building proposed. Second point I have, this property is not accessible by the foot. There is no sidewalks. You can't access this property at all. I was looking around where apartment buildings are. Everywhere there is sidewalks, people can access by the foot. This property is not accessible. So what, people supposed to trespass our properties to get into the building if they decided to walk to the store or somewhere else? I don't know. My third concern is like, it's really, really parking. I don't have enough parking space for myself. I park my car in somebody's driveway sometimes. That's what's happening. We can't take extra one car. And it's going to happen. People are going to visit the place, and they're going to try to park on our streets. And they can say it's enough parking spots, but it's not enough as a parking spots. My point is, this project too humongous for this particular neighborhood. I can't tell a person like, oh, you can't build on the land if it's your land. But I think board has to consider like this is a really, really big project. If they're trying to squeeze something not squeezable, they have to design something much smaller. It's my opinion, basically. Another point is, in 10 years, it's going to be a lot of electric cars. And every car will need to have a 240 volts charger. So it's luxury apartments. Is he going to provide charger for every parking spot? And it's not myth. It's really going to happen in 10, 15 years. So actually, if he'll provide the chargers and if it's going to be flooded, what's going to happen? All neighborhood are going to see it without electric power because it's all wiring got flooded and it's shortened. When I moved in this neighborhood in 1995, I used to pay like less than $400 for my water and sewage for a whole year. Right now, my bill over $1,000. About 3 years ago, I went to Clifford Beach to it's water.
MUA?
Yeah. And asked what's going on, why increase the prices so drastically. My sewage bill is higher than water bill. And they said, oh, like, we're pumping all our stuff to Sayreville, and they're asking for more money. So basically, by putting this building, 42 apartments, it's basically the same as put in neighborhood 42 houses. How is it going to affect our storage bill after that? It's going to go high and high. I have to pay for his storage. I have to pay for his crop, basically.
Understood.
I was a victim of rear-ended on Route 135 in August. My taillights were basically on the back seat of my car. I survived. But they represent the plan, like how car gonna get into the parking lot. But what if space so tight, if simultaneously car wants to get inside the parking lot and simultaneously other car wants to exit, what's gonna happen? Car which will be on Route 35 is gonna stop. It will cause a lot of accidents. And I mentioned it before, they need at least acceleration lane and slow down lane. If they're gonna put these lanes, they don't have enough parking spots. It's just proving this project is too big. And I would like to use the word, I'm begging you, begging, please don't approve it. Basically, that's it, what I can come up with right now. But I'm not happy. I know everyone is not happy. Don't forget how many people came in the first session, but they kind of give up. People feel they can do nothing about it. But you saw first meeting how many people came and they weren't happy about it. Don't remember them. You never gave them a chance to speak. I think I represent their opinions too, because I spoke to those people. That's it.
Thank you, sir.
I asked him.
Oh, hold on, what would you do a sidebar here with him? And folks, the reason I'm doing that is Mr. Merwin is now a councilman. So he's going to take some advice from the board attorney before anything further goes on.
I was going to come up and ask that question.
Having heard that advice, you're going to come up or not?
Swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, I do.
Please state your name, spelling your last name,
David-
address for the record.
David Merwin, M-E-R-W-I-N, 842 Summerfield Avenue, Lawrence Harbor.
Mr. Chairman, and just so the board's aware, Mr. Merwin or Councilman Merwin is now a councilman. When he spoke at previous meetings, he was not. I just advised him that if this application is approved and there is the issue of the vacating of that street, which arises before the council, he would have to recuse himself. He understands that.
Appeal or anything else.
Right.
I would-
Mr. Merwin, go right ahead.
Okay. First, the planner put a wonderful presentation on, and that all sounds good. You know, things you learn in the books, you know, sometimes they sound real good, but take it from somebody that's lived there for over 60 years. There is no inherent value to this application. This is a detriment to that neighborhood. And I think that is one of the biggest criterias that this project has to put forward, is that there's some kind of value for the neighborhood. 12 and a half units per acre definitely is not an inherent value to that neighborhood. This is an R5. It belongs as an R5. It's a commercial rateable building. We're taking it away to put apartments up. The two schools in that neighborhood at this particular time are just about at max. As a matter of fact, I was at a function today at the Memorial School and talked to the principal, and he may have some openings for about 12 kids on a third grade level. They've already planned 529 units already in another section of Lawrence Harbor. We just inundate the neighborhood. Again, 44 feet. It's pretty high. it definitely does not fit within the character of the neighborhood. Never has. And that would make them just about equal to those houses that are along Route 35. But the houses that are down behind it, that are on Prospect, Greenwood, and Forest, are going to be looking directly into this apartment building. And it's just not it. And the applicant got up and said, that I stated it was the cart before the horse. Well, that was the first meeting I said that. But at the last meeting, I said, this is the whole wagon train in front of the train, in front of the horses. This is crazy. This bifurcated application. They still, here we are another month later, they still haven't made an application for the vacation of the street. Here we are, they haven't gone before the DOT. They haven't gone before this one, that one. We know it's a flood zone. We know it's a flood zone. It's in the VA and the VE, and it's got to be built 11 foot high. This is not conducive to that area. Please, please, just say no. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rose. Anybody else want to be heard? Okay, sir. As you come up, how many more people are we dealing with? Because I am going to need to have the stenographer take a break. So are you going to be the last one, sir, you think? Anybody else?
Yeah, the
Okay.
pharmacy.
We're going to have this last witness. We're going
Yeah.
to take a 5-minute recess or so the stenographer can rest her hands. Board Attorney will swear you in, sir.
Swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God? Please state your name, spelling your last name, address for the record.
Tony Velez, V-E-L-E-Z, 640 Forest Avenue, Lawrence Harbor.
Thank you, Mr. Velez.
I'm kind of amazed that I live in Lawrence Harbor. I've been there for 35 years, and I'm kind of amazed that they even want to build something on this property. I mean, it's like we've indicated, it's a flood zone, and but I think about Forest Avenue. I live on the dead-end street. I'm the last house on the block, and the GPS shows that Forest goes all the way through to Route 35. And I'm afraid what's going to happen with this building, if it ever, comes to it, that they're going to make Forest Avenue go all the way to 35, just to ease off some of the traffic that's going to accumulate. The apartments, the building, the people that would live in there really doesn't contribute anything to our community, and I feel that, I just feel that it's just adding more to the schools, it's adding more traffic, and I think we have enough buildings going up, there's major developments all around us, but to put this on the highway, it's going to be an eyesore. And I tell you what, this building goes up, and it's going to open Pandora's box. Next thing you know, there's going to be multiple buildings along the highway, because I just feel it's not right, 35 years in the harbor, it's just not right that it should be done.
Thank you, Mr. Velez. All right, folks, I appreciate everyone hanging in there tonight, and I appreciate all the commentary that came forward. I am going to close the public portion at this time, and we're also going to take a 5-minute recess. We will convene right after. Reconvene, excuse me. Call the meeting back to order. Ms. Silverman, roll call, please.
Mr. Connor?
Here.
Mr. Dewar?
Here.
Ms. Killaloe?
Here.
Mr. Snow?
Here.
Mr. Walker?
Here.
Ms. Chevalier?
Here.
Mr.
Here.
Chairman Sullivan?
Here.
Mr. Sachs?
Here.
Mrs. Shapiro?
Cole.
Here. Ms. O'Kane? Here. Mr. Garrity?
Here.
Mr. Ramsey?
Here.
Mr. LaBella? Mr. O'Barrow?
Here.
All right, we're back on matter 1117Z, that's Overlook Associates, 441 unit apartment building. Mr. Alfieri, you have any commentary before I'm going to go to the board for any commentary?
Yeah, if I could take 2 minutes just to summarize a
Go
couple
right ahead,
points.
sir.
Thank you. First of all, thank you all for putting the time in and listening to the 3 hearings. I wanted to emphasize just a couple points. First, under the municipal land use law, the statute specifically provides that an applicant can bifurcate or split its application. And the reason for that is that the various layers of approval are very expensive, and the legislature has determined that the best approach would be to give an applicant an opportunity to get through the use variance phase, and if it's approved, then spend all that money that would be required. And that's exactly what we're doing tonight. We have 3 variances that we're seeking. The D1 variance is for the actual use. Apartments are not permitted in the zone. The D5 variance is for the density, and the D6 variance is for the height. You've heard the testimony on all of those points. We have agreed as part of this bifurcated application to address all of your professional comments, engineering, planning, fire official, etc. And if this is approved, we would obviously come back for a full site plan on notice to the public, separate application. If you were to approve this tonight, as I indicated earlier tonight, the maximum height would be what we've asked for tonight, if that's what you vote for. The maximum number of units would be 41. And it could only go down if during the site plan phase issues come up that require reduction. In addition, we need various layers of outside agency approval, primarily the Department of Transportation and the Department of Environmental Protection. And if any of those agencies come back with conditions or restraints that further restrict the site, then we'd have to come back with a greatly reduced or partially reduced project as well. We also need to go to the governing body, as you heard earlier, about the paper street. The public has raised a few issues that I wanted to touch on. Traffic. First, your traffic safety official, I believe Mr. Erickson's his name, issued a report that there would be no impact on traffic. Our expert gave you testimony as to the fact that there will be no impact on traffic. The state has jurisdiction actually over this road, and the Department of Transportation will take a careful look at this access point, the traffic impact, and to ensure that it will operate safely. In addition, our traffic expert indicated at least during after the evening peak time, the existing go-go bar, if and when it becomes fully operational, will generate a higher traffic count or volume than this would at the PM peak. The paper street we discussed and the members of the public discussed. There are several options that I went through in more detail earlier. I'm not going to spend more time tonight, but we will have to address that in some capacity with the governing body. Drainage in the flood zone. That is an NJDEP regulation that we need to address. As we indicated, and our engineer has indicated on many occasions, there's several layers of DEP approvals we have to get. We also have to comply with your ordinance and the stormwater management regulations to deal with all the drainage issues that would be associated with a development of this type. Remember, we really can't disturb anything more than it currently exists because of the DEP regulations. So there's going to be no impact on drainage, and your ordinance, the stormwater management regs, and the DEP will make sure that that's true. We presented, one final point is parking. The residential site improvement standards, which we've agreed to comply with, take into account not only the residents, but the number of visitors. That's all been studied by the state, and the state has determined what the required parking would be to accommodate all the residential uses, including this type of use, and we've agreed to comply with that. Our professionals have provided testimony to address every comment that everyone has made. Doesn't mean that the residents are going to agree with those positions, but obviously the professionals have given professional opinions. We believe that, especially through the planner's testimony, that you have a severely constrained site. It fronts on a highway. It has a non-conforming use that if and when it's fully operational will have far more negative impact than anything that we're proposing tonight. And you have to keep that in mind, that bar does not go away if this is denied. The neighbors say tonight, or over the many nights, they'd rather have the bar, but The truth is if it becomes fully operational, there are issues associated with the bar that are far worse than 41 apartments. The planner gave the legal justifications to support the variance, and the applicant respectfully requests that the board approve the application as presented. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Alfieri. I would invite any board members at this time to make any comments you would like before. I assume you're going to ask for a vote, sir?
Yes, please.
Okay. Before we do move for a vote, if you want to wait, I'm going to make mine. You can make it afterwards. Let me explain, as I normally do when we have areas of concern and we have a lot of residents that take up concern, what the Zoning Board of Adjustment is really all about and who we are, just so you understand. We are common citizens just like yourselves. We all live in somewhere here in Old Bridge, whether our mailing address is Old Bridge or Lawrence Harbor or Matawan. We all live in the same jurisdiction. We are volunteers. We are not paid people, nor is anyone on this board a professional in land use law, except this man next to me who's an attorney. No one here is an engineer, no one here is an architect, and no one here is a planner. But over years of listening, we learn, and that is our job, to listen. And in this application, we've had 3 different meetings. August 3rd, December 7th, and of course, tonight, January 11th. And each and every time, different professionals came before this panel and in some way, shape, or form put technical and planning testimony on the record. And that includes a lot of things that maybe people don't understand. There are some things that even the board members here don't fully understand to the degree that the professional, like a professional engineer or a planner would. And as Mr. Sachs would understand law far better than we. But we're all sworn individuals to do the best that we possibly can. And I've found that over the years, some of the best testimony that I've heard and that becomes relevant is during the public portion of applications. And of course, I was here for each and every one. And I have rather detailed notes from each and every one. And what I found that you all remember, all of these ran fairly late into the night, and unfortunately the public portion always comes last after the professionals testify. And then we go to the public, and so you would actually be prepared to have commentary in reaction to what they said. Everyone here seems to have a lot of conviction about this application. On August 3rd, we listened to 11 witnesses, all from the area. And on 12/7, we had 7. We ran fairly late that night. And tonight, we had another 10. There was a few repeats, but in all, that's 17 and 28 people came before the panel and spoke. And they spoke on various issues. Just to glance over a few. Drainage from the house, retention walls, compaction, traffic congestion, 4311 too high, view being blocked and taken away. One person spoke in favor. That was the owner of the property to the south, saying that it would be in favor of the building and would help drainage. Traffic, school children, water, overflow parking onto the access roads, school buses in and out, light pollution, parking, strangers, speeding, building height with pilings. View is now shot, putting a curtain up, too big for the neighborhood. School buses, where do the kids stand? Again, a retaining wall. Danger to public safety, referring to the traffic on Route 35. Wildlife in the ecosystem. Neighborhood disturbance. School impact, and not enough parking. I like to go to sites, particularly when they're of this magnitude and applications, and view them for myself. Someone asked before if anybody goes. I normally try to always go. I did go to this. And I appeared there on Monday. And as you know, there was a lot of snow. But I must say, The town did a pretty good job on plowing most of the streets around there. But those streets are narrow, and I traversed all of them. Prospect, up and down. And I look where this little access way would potentially come out. And what I see is an area for abuse, and I see exactly what's going to happen, what normally happens in overflow spill. When their own lot, if it were approved, became full, there would be no other place to park. There's no way across the highway. You're locked in on that side by a Jersey barrier. There's nothing to the south. That property, I believe, is closed by a fence, so they couldn't even use that. So you'd really be forced to overflow park on those side streets. And they're very narrow, extremely narrow. I was brought back. I hadn't been in that area in a while, and it reminded me of how tight and how close the housing is. And what I heard from people was love of neighborhood and love of their land. As small as it may be, they stand in conviction of protecting their area. The site itself, I'm familiar with. It was a go-go bar for years. I don't know what it was originally years back, whether it was a licensed premise or not, but it is not a very large site. When I look at this plan, I see an overbuild on this site. While the professionals certainly said this could handle it, and by RSIS standards, when we're talking about parking, ideally, yeah, but ideally doesn't always work. Ms. Coffin used the quote, "the challenge to develop." You might have remembered her saying that, and it would be. Mr. Alfieri almost said it, although he doesn't testify in his wrap-up, he said it would be a difficult area to develop. I see a lot of potential problem here. I really do. I heard value versus detriment, and I don't see inherent value, personally. I really don't. This is a residential zone. Apartments are not allowed. It would require a D1 use. That's what we would be voting on tonight. And when I see the conviction that you have, and who better than yourselves who live in neighborhoods who know exactly what happens in that neighborhood. We can hear all the testimony we want, but it's really from your voices that we learn the most. Certainly you know we have limited powers. Our powers are to vote in favor or against an application. I would tell you that there are legal areas that can be taken post our judgment. Should we vote in the negative, that they could seek relief at a higher level of court system. That we have no control over. But I will tell you all here tonight, I'm very convinced, and the fact that you all stayed every single night and came out here and really spoke from the heart, that I cannot support this application. I would ask at this time if any other member would like to weigh in before we go for a vote, or would you just care to go for a vote?
I'll put on the record.
Mr. Walker.
I've listened to the testimony of all the residents, and I can't support this application either. It's your neighborhood, and I think you should decide what's best for you.
Anybody else?
Sure.
Mr. Dewhurst.
Actually, looking at the picture, it really is a pretty building. It just doesn't fit there. It doesn't fit in your neighborhood. We've heard it. And for your community, I think it is a quality of life issue. You brought that out very well. It's your swamp. You like it. Okay. You prefer the bar there? Again, it's your neighborhood, not mine. I can't support this application.
Mrs. Kilduff?
Yes, I'm a lifelong resident of this town. I have very intimate dealings with Route 35. And, sir, that road is very dangerous. So, as per that Route 35, I can't support it either.
O'Connor.
We don't always agree on this board, but I agree with everything that's been said so far.
Okay. Mr. Sachs, you would please advise the board on to the vote.
Yeah, well, the first vote you'll take would be on the D1 use variance.
The D1 use variance in the fact that apartments are not allowed in the R5 zone, correct? Everybody understand? Roll call as to, I'm sorry, would someone want to make a motion to approve?
Approve or deny.
Or deny?
Motion to deny.
I'll second.
All right, so if the motion's been made to deny, so if you're voting to deny the application, you would have a yes vote, and if you're voting to allow it, then you would be a no vote.
Roll call, please.
My vote is yes to deny.
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 For all the aforementioned reasons that are on the record, yes to deny.
All right, let's vote on the D5 and D6. I know that the use has been denied, so it cannot be built in that fashion, but just so the record is complete, since someone has already made a motion to deny the D1, I would entertain a motion to deny the D5 if that's what the board would like to do.
And that
The
is
D5 is the density variance.
The density because of the 12.5
Correct.
dwelling units per acre.
Correct.
Where 7 allowed. I'll move to deny.
I'll second.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Connor?
Yes to deny.
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 And the last motion would be for the D6, which was the height variance.
D6 as the height 4311 where 35 permitted. I'll move yes to deny. Move to deny. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Roll call.
Yes to deny.
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 Again, for all my aforementioned reasons, yes to deny.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Alfieri, and your professionals for your presentation.
Thank you.
I'm going to tell them it might be a good time to take a cup of tea. Because we're going to go to the next application, right?
Over the drugstore.
Maybe we'll get one witness in.
Well, the tattoo parlor's in the building.
Get one witness.
This is
Because I know they want to stop around 10:30, so.